What happened at your school that shocks you to this day? In 6th grade, a girl left the school crying and never came back. I didn't know what was happening at the time, but it turns out the girl had been pregnant and the two girls who knew, her friends, had told everyone about it. Now, this happened in Bhutan in the mid-2000s, so not everyone in grade 6 was 11 years old. This girl was 15 over 16 at the time. Her friends were the same age. I was 11, and I knew the girl. She would treat me like a younger brother, picking me up from home on her way to walk to school and dropping me off in the evening. This image of her using the hem of her tego, like a blazer for girls, to wipe her tears as she walked away is burned into my eyes. Every time I see the specific green shade of our school uniform, I think of her. She came from a poor family and I guess they made a little money through an informal bed and breakfast. The man who raped this little girl was a taxi driver. Our English teacher knew she was pregnant, and the plan had been to have the girl deliver the baby during summer break discreetly. But the girl's friends could not keep their mouths shut. I never heard from her again. I've asked about her, and the only things I've heard in the last few years is that she eventually did go back to school. I get so angry thinking about this. My 7th grade English teacher used to have an anger problem. Granted, I went to a bad school in a bad neighborhood, but he still got angry over nothing. He used to threaten to throw desks if we misbehaved too much. One time this dude was yelling at a student and slapped the ruler down on the table. It broke in half and splinters flew everywhere. He was given Teacher of the Year later that year. That no one broke a bone during the crowbar fights. It wasn't crowbars. A couple of children used to pull the rusty iron railings out of the wall and wail on the other kids. Most other people used sticks or stones in homemade slings. Somehow, we all got out of it relatively unscathed. Mostly scrapes, cuts and bruises. Looking back, we must have been holding back, because bulldogs was a different story and at least 3 kids broke a leg playing that. A friend of mine was 13 when she was groomed by our history teacher. She would linger after the school day and meet him in his classroom, where they would make out. It lasted about a year. He had his Hotmail account open on his class computer one day when she was waiting for him, and she saw that he was emailing a handful of other girls at the school. She testified against him about 6 years later. He was never struck off. Taught at the school for a long time. Married one of the English teachers who supported him during his court hearings. Mid-70s small town in Tennessee. Student brought her dad's KKK outfit to school. One of the coaches put it on and started chasing 2 black guys around the classroom. Jewish teacher found out and lost her mind. Outcome: no one is allowed to bring their dad's KKK outfit to school anymore. Otherwise, life goes on. A popular football athlete kills his pregnant cheerleader ex-girlfriend. I made that sound terrible, but it's true. I was friends with the both of them. Not to mention they were really well liked. The school took sides, grief counselors everywhere, fights happened, memorials were put up, and more. We were a very small town in Indiana, and the murder put us on the map for all the wrong reasons, since it made national headlines. School has never been the same, and my trust has taken a huge toll. Was talking to my friend about it, and we both agreed that since then, it would be hard to trust anyone. It was such a sucky blow, though. I'll miss her, and I'll feel weird about him forever. Almost crazy to think that Cole'd been my best friend, because early last year, before the murder 11 months later, her and the football player were talking. I guarantee you that, if you searched up high school football player kills girlfriend Indiana or something like that, you can find the article just about anywhere. I told this story before, but a kid in my brother's Catholic high school put a matchbook under my brother's belt at the base of his back and lit it on fire as a prank. I guess, causing a pretty severe burn. His coach saw it and assumed the worst, abuse, and had my parents called in. After they threatened my dad with child abuse, my brother finally told them what happened, and they were going to expel the kid who did it. My dad went to bat for the kid and said it was a stupid mistake and that the right education would assure that this would never happen again. The kid got to stay in the school based only on what my dad said. 2 weeks after this, my brother got caught outside a school dance with a Bartles and James wine cooler and was going to be expelled. They called my dad in again and told them they were expelling my brother, and my dad flipped out. "I convinced you to keep the boy that set my son on fire in this school, and you are going to kick my son out for drinking a wine cooler? What the f is wrong with you?" My brother got to stay in school because my father was incredibly large and intimidating. And you know, when I was 13, someone in my school shat on the floor in one of the corridors whilst everybody was outside for the break. And it wasn't hidden in a corner, it was in plain sight in front of windows and a glass door that led outside. Someone saw the turd from outside and everybody gathered around the door to look at the principal picking it up with a paper towel. We only learned who had done it a while after the event, and it turns out it was this really weird kid that used to be in my class in primary school. And when I say weird, I mean that he used to write about murdering and mutilating bodies when we wrote short stories as 10-year-olds. Weird kid changed school after the turd fiasco, and I haven't seen him since, but I'm very curious to know what became of him. I boarded in my last year of high school. Over the course of several terms, many students had reported wallets, phones, cash missing from bags left in the senior student common room, left on school trip buses, etc. I was rummaging around in the storage area of our boarding unit in what thought was my roommate's tramping pack when I found a bag full of wallets, like 30 or so, and had permission from roommate. Turns it wasn't the right pack. Checked a few of the wallets, and they had no cash, but still had the IDs of several people I knew had had them stolen. Confronted student whose pack it was who claimed they were being set up. Bullshit. So took bag of wallets to boarding supervisor, who basically just said, well, they've said it wasn't them and we can't prove it, so nothing we can do. I was like, hello lady, have you heard of the police? Didn't matter by that point, as multiple people including my suspect had handled them all. Supervisor told us we were not to talk to any other student about it, but that quietly told several people who had had wallets taken, and suspect was shunned by end of year by most people. Just in case anyone thinks I didn't have the proof, to add insult to injury, prior to this locked boarding unit of 6 students had multiple valuables stolen, and there was only one person who hadn't. Guess who that person was? I was sitting down in class writing a history report in college. As I wrote, the lights began to flicker, and there was a rattling coming from the hall. I'm the only one in the building, since it's 7 PM and the professors went home. I got up and began to pack my belongings when I heard a crash coming from the first floor. I'm in the basement area. I ran out to check what it was when I heard the wind howling and snow flying in at an alarming rate. I called campus safety about the window, and they told me to stay calm. I got picked up 30 minutes later. It turns out that there was a blizzard and the whole campus is under lockdown due to the dangerous conditions. Well, I think I've learned my lesson about staying late to write. Male teacher, who was married with a new baby, slept with a student. I think student was around 16. The most memorable part was when another teacher walked into the middle of class one day and punched him after finding out they were good friends. Also, it was a Christian school, lol. There were 2 second grade teachers at my school, and students would switch teachers for math and reading depending on their placement. I went to the other teacher for math, and she would constantly get upset with us over very minimal issues. She would often yell and make sarcastic comments. When she had enough of us, she would go into the closet at the back of the classroom and scream. She would do this on a semi-regular basis, and it was always terrifying. Other teachers and people knew she did this, because how you could not hear an adult screaming in poorly soundproofed classrooms. She still taught 4 years and eventually retired. It absolutely baffles me that this woman, who clearly had anger management and emotional issues, was allowed to work with children for years. 8th graders were dealing tea as if it was cocaine. In my school we only had a water vending machine and people wanted other stuff, so some kids bring in some dollar store tea and start dealing it for $1.50 a bag. This blew up because everyone was all in one area for recess, so the teachers got suspicious. Some kids were talking about getting a couple of bajel, so the teacher flipped her shit and the kids went to the office. There it came out people were selling tea bags and not crack or weed, but the teachers banned it anyway because it was against school policy or something like that. There was a magazine aimed at teens that was very tabloid-like with a section in the back with a fully naked picture of a girl and a boy. Not explicitly sexual, just frontal naked pics. Because this was Germany, these models only had to be 16 to have their pic taken. But if they weren't 18, their parents had to sign it off. A chick in our school was in it, and for some reason didn't anticipate the entire school finding out. To this day I can't believe the mum signed that off. I hope that the girl just forged her signature or something. Imagine signing a letter to let your 16 or 17-year-old daughter appear naked in a magazine. Thanks for watching. Please hit like and subscribe.